I do think, like, I'm as concerned as anybody for the duration of this season. You know, the fact that we started a week earlier for training camp, the fact that we played our first game in August, and we're hoping to play January 20th. That's a long haul for a student athlete, you know, who's going to school, who's, you know, 18, 19 years old, and the toll that it can take. And I think that we need to keep it fresh for them, because I do think the mental intensity we have to have week in and week out is going to be really important. And so, you know, it's going to be kind of an intensified mental approach to what we're trying to do schematically, but then it's back off them and let them relax a little bit. And I think that that's going to be important so that when we come back next week, we can really go.
That was head coach Steve Sarkisian of the Texas Longhorns talking about how he approaches this bye week after the Longhorns' 5-0 start and a week before the Red River rivalry, which, as we all know, is one of the biggest games of the year for Texas. Thank you so much for joining us for the Horns Report. I'm your host, Billy Gates. And with you, talk about their kind of approach to this bye week where they're not going to play a ball game is KXN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, I mean, there's bye weeks in every season, obviously, but kind of there's two built into this regular season with the new SEC schedule, with the college football playoff. If things go right for the Longhorns, they want to be playing in mid-January. This thing's a grind. And so, like, having, like, this bye week now before a big game, it's going to be pretty advantageous. I mean, it's for both teams. Both Oklahoma and Texas have a bye, but, I mean, for it to come now, pretty nice.
Yeah, and they'll still work. They'll practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They'll get the weekend off, so they'll start working on Oklahoma pretty quickly here. But the fact that they don't have a game to get ready for means that they can also look at a lot of the younger guys in practice as well, give them some meaningful practice reps. But, yeah, I mean, 5 weeks plus training camp. And as you mentioned, there are two. So they only have 3 games in their next phase, as Sark calls it, before they get that second bye, before the stretch run. But clearly they're a little bit banged up. Most notably, you get an extra week for Quinn Ewers, which I think everyone realizes now that was probably the plan all along.
Yeah.
And Sark sounded pretty confident, basically by saying that he's thrilled they have 2 quarterbacks. They've got a backup who had meaningful reps, who had meaningful starts, and we may need him the rest down the road, inferring that they fully intend on Quinn Ewers to be ready to go for Oklahoma. So, yeah, good time. Other guys got banged up. Michael Taft, we didn't hear anything about him, but he didn't play most of the second half.
Right.
So, you know, another week for these running backs. They all seem to be hobbled a little bit at one point or another to get well as well as the rest of the guys.
Yeah, and you look at how Arch Manning has filled in for Quinn Ewers. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is the QB1. Steve Sarkisian hasn't made that a secret for the past 2.5, 3 seasons, really. But, I mean, Arch has come in and played very, very well. I mean, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns against Mississippi State. That game for the Longhorns was a bit clunky when it comes to, you know, just kind of comparing what they did before. But then again, that was their first game against an SEC opponent. And even if it is Mississippi State, they haven't had the best year. They still have scholarships. Like they're still in the SEC. So just kind of that good performance for Arch leading into this bye, and just kind of giving the Longhorns a pretty good feeling about where they're headed.
Well, you think of last year when Quinn Ewers goes down against Houston, and everyone was wondering, okay, what do they have with Malik Murphy?
Right.
He really hadn't taken many meaningful snaps. Fortunately, he had enough. Beat BYU, beat Kansas State.
Yeah.
So now you have meaningful snaps for Arch, and for the most part, pretty stress-free games, although the second half, Mississippi State was still in it all the way until really early in the fourth quarter when Texas got a little bit of separation. But yeah, and Quinn's proven that he can come back from injury and not be rusty. That doesn't mean he's going to lead them to 49-0 like they did a couple of years ago.
That's happened before.
That's right. But yeah, I think in some ways this was a good thing for Arch, not a good thing for Quinn, but that's kind of where we are with football, and everyone going, well, why would Arch stay? Not saying he's staying because he thought I'll get reps as the backup, but this is why I'm sure Texas did everything they could to, you know, make sure that he felt like, okay, down the road this is going to be your team, but you're still valuable even if Quinn's the starter.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's all about that development, right? I mean, we've said time and time again that Manning is from that type of football family that values hard work, that values taking your time, that, you know, Eli and Peyton did that when they were those are his uncles, by the way. They both did that when they were in college at Tennessee and Ole Miss. And so, like, it's kind of ingrained in Arch's, sort of DNA, really. And going back to his grandpa, Archie, who played for the Saints in the NFL and stuff. So it's kind of just second nature to Arch to really get in hands-on and learn what kind of system he's going to run. And obviously Steve Sarkisian and Coach A.J. Milwee are tremendous teachers of the game.
Well, I think they knew what they were getting into when he committed to Texas. Quinn Ewers was a freshman, but clearly based on his makeup, his projected success, they knew that, there's no guarantee he was going to step in and play right away. And then the big one was when he decided to stay after last year. Quinn leads him to a Big 12 title, says he's coming back, and Arch is back. So I think that, is kind of put to rest. He's going to get his chance. He's already gotten his chance. And now Texas has two quarterbacks that are proven as they move forward. But, it gets a lot more difficult. Oklahoma's feeling pretty good. They kind of stole one from Auburn with a pick six when Auburn just needed to kind of, bleed that clock at the end of the game. Maybe got a little greedy. And then, obviously, Georgia coming up in 2 weeks. After what they went through last week, it'll be there'll be a bit of separation between the games, but still, everybody got to see what they're capable of with that amazing comeback, only to lose to Alabama. And then you go to a Vanderbilt team that has played better than most thought they would be.
They're looking pretty good, yeah.
That's right.
And they've got AISD all-time leading rusher Cedric Alexander packing the ball for them. He's been seeing some time. So, that's further down the road than what we're talking about right now. But Sarkisian kind of went over sort of like the plan for the week for his guys during Monday's news conference. And he said Monday they just did their meetings, didn't really get on the field, do much. And then they're going to practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but kind of back those practices up days when it comes to like the workload. So was it going to be like a full week of, tough practices, like getting ready for a game? And then he's going to give the guys Friday, Saturday, Sunday off so they can go see their families, kind of get refreshed, sort of get their minds and their bodies right before coming back next Monday and then really hitting it hard with your more typical week of practice. And that's pretty much the protocol for a bye week, right? Even when there's a big game coming up, you still want to give your guys time to sort of get their bodies and their minds right.
Yeah, you start thinking about, they got to get to work and just keep grinding away. You can't do that.
No.
He talked about what a grind they've already been through. So, he wants them to, they're probably tired of hearing him. He's probably tired of yelling at them for a little bit for the weekend, get a chance to go home, guys that can get with their family that are close enough, or players that are from, a little further away. Maybe they'll go with a friend or a teammate, or just stay here, go, fly home. Whatever the case may be, just get a little mental break and then be ready to go. But they'll be working on Oklahoma tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. And then also within those practices, they also like to give other guys. Now, they played, some 77 guys in 2 different games. So it may be a little bit different than some programs that, have to don't have that luxury. But still, they want to get them some practice reps that they wouldn't normally get in a traditional game week. So I think that's an important part. And then the coaches go recruit. Mm-hmm. And, Sark joked about, it's good to go out and recruit when you're 5-0 and ranked number 1 in one poll and number 2 in the other poll. Yeah. And you get the red carpet treatment. So I think that's kind of an unintended consequence of this week is, the Longhorn logo carries even a little bit more weight this weekend when he goes out. The way that they're perceived around the nation right now. Yeah,
and we've talked about polls on this program quite a bit, and we all know what they mean. But we kind of saw this one coming, right? The winner of that Georgia-Alabama game would undoubtedly jump to number 1, even no matter how that Texas-Mississippi State game went. I think Texas could have won that game 60-0, and they still would have been number 2 to Alabama, obviously, who ended up winning that game. But it just sort of shows how the voters are now kind of embracing ranking who's the number 1 team right now, as opposed to maybe trying to project something down the road. And I kind of like it that way.
It's funny because they jumped to 1 in the coaches poll, which, as we know, probably aren't the coaches actually voting. And Sark, by the way, does not have a vote.
He does not.
In the coaches poll. But yeah, Alabama initially, it looked like they were going to boat race Georgia. And then you go, oh my gosh, of course they're going to be number one. And then Georgia makes that incredible comeback, and Alabama still turns around and wins it. And so you can kind of go, okay, now they face a little adversity and came back and won. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. Maybe if Texas had jumped out 28-0 in the first quarter and just had an incredibly clean game, maybe they stay number one in the AP. But I said last week amongst us that I thought the winner of the Alabama game would probably jump to number one. And suddenly that Georgia close win against Kentucky doesn't look as bad as maybe it looked then, because we know Kentucky's pretty good. They won at Ole Miss, but it was Alabama going on to win the game, and there'll be plenty of other chances to make the move. But most important thing is keeping that SEC record clean as long as you can. Right.
Yeah. Got to play for that SEC title. That's kind of the first goal in a series of goals. Is kind of like their approach to last season, where they're like, well, we got to win the Big 12 first, and then after that, when we get to the playoff, and then after that, yada. Same sort of deal, except you just switch Big 12 with SEC, which is still kind of weird to say, to be honest with you.
Well, especially when you say Texas and Oklahoma and an SEC showdown coming up. But remember, Texas and Oklahoma used to play non-conference. Oklahoma was in the Big 8. Texas was in the Southwest Conference some 30 years ago. So
been a while.
Yeah, they went in, and all of a sudden that game changed a little bit because they were conference rivals. But that's a few decades ago. So it should be fun in the Cotton Bowl. A little different. It'll be afternoon into evening. For the first time in a while. And Oklahoma going in with some confidence, even though I think Texas will probably be a double-figure favorite. They found a way to win without a whole lot of offense, but Michael Hawkins showed he can be dynamic. And then I think their defense is pretty good. They held Tennessee pretty well, and then obviously the defense won the game against Auburn. So we know how this goes with Texas and OU. You just never know. And even when you think like a few years ago when they went out to a huge lead, that one nearly bit them. And, of course, the Dicker the Kicker game in 2018, they lost a huge lead and had to come back and kick it on the second-to-last play of the game.
Yep, never dull moment in the Cotton Bowl when Texas and OU get together. But that's going to have to wait for another week or so. They've got a bye week coming up to prepare for that. The Red River Rivalry, 2:30 p.m., October 12th, there from the State Fair of Texas. So fans are able to get there early, get their corny dogs, get their tailgates going outside the Cotton Bowl, and have just a grand old time. Wouldn't have it any other way, right? It's Americana at its finest, right?
And we don't have to leave at 4 a.m. on Saturday morning.
It helps us out.
A little more reasonable.
All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of the Horns Report. Thank you so much for watching, and for Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.